Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Miami, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, we'll be hearing more from Dr. Dal Chow, president of Adventist World Radio. Also, more than 100 years ago, Wireless at War, the story of the world's first wireless reports from a war zone. And, of course, our regular monthly DX report from the Philippines. Last week on Wavescan, we had another segment of Dr. Dal Chow's address at the 2013 annual meeting of the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters, or NASB, in Birmingham, Alabama, here in the United States. Dr. Chow is the president of Adventist World Radio. He's also a member of the board of directors of the NASB. And today, continuing with his address to the members of NASB in Alabama, he's going to be talking about some of the languages that AWR broadcasts in.
How many languages? I mentioned over 80. Malayalam, and Miso, our listeners in India, Farsi, Iran, Pashto for Pakistan, Turkish for people Turkey, of course, Spanish for most of Central and South America, of course, Portuguese. We don't even know how many people, on places, because many of them download our signal from the satellites and use it as a feed to their programs, and we don't even track that. So we don't know. We just know that many use that. How many people listen? Depending where if you ask me about North Korea, we don't know. We have a few secret reports that come out of North Korea now and then. Not very often. China? Charles was telling me they get very good hits from China. On our podcast in 2011, we had 211 plus million subscribers in China. Not in China, in Asia, of which we believe over 600,000 or 700,000 were from China alone. It's hard to get metrics from China. The government has full and complete control over that. But once we weeded out the rest of the countries that we can weed out, we kind of knew that the rest is basically from China. And that put that figure close to 600,000 subscribers. Now, subscribers is different from a hit. Subscribers, when you pay for their subscription, you get the paper in your door every day. So you want it. You subscribe to it. So even though we don't get a lot of correspondence, which I shouldn't say a lot, we do get. But mostly emails now, phone calls, and so forth, of our studio in Hong Kong. They take care of those requests in Mandarin and Cantonese from China. We do know that there are a lot of listeners in China, in spite of China coming up with a strong DRM programming, in fact. People are still listening to shortwave strongly, especially in the countryside. How does Adventist help people who want to become Christian? First, the letter and email, telephone calls, we route those to the speakers, because I don't speak Pashto. So if somebody wants to hear more in Pashto, that person needs to connect with this producer, not me. We have it set up in a way they can go straight to that producer. That producer is found either in India or in Lahore, Pakistan. They will take care of that interest. Where possible, we may send them a Bible. You know what I mean when I say where possible? We had a letter from an Arabic, a Muslim country, where the writer said, please send me a Bible. I really want one. I've never had one, and I think it's a great book. I've heard a lot about it, and I want to own one. And this person went on and on in a letter, handwritten letter. At the end of the letter, the person says, oh, by the way, don't send me the Bible. Thank you, but don't send it. Why do you think that person changed his or her mind? To own a Bible, and you all know this, in certain countries is a crime, a criminal crime. I mean a criminal offense. Just to own one. I could stand here for hours unending to tell you stories. I'll give you one. A young lady in Myanmar, which has opened up. Myanmar is much more open today than it was before, Burma. Her father found her listening to one of her programs on a little radio. He got so mad. He pulled the radio from her and told her, next time I hear you listening, I'll kill you. And he took the radio and he slammed it on the wall. She picked up the radio in pieces, basically, crying, sobbing. You know, when you destroy a radio for a person in these parts of the world is a great loss. You may not put a lot of value to this thing, but for them it's a great loss. She picked up the little radio, and she saw a little light still flickering inside the thing. And in pieces, she put it the best way she could back together, and lo and behold, the thing was still working. Now, she listens to the radio in the quietness of in the night. We told her to use the earphone, you know, the little thing, ear thing you put in the radio. She goes in her room and she listens to the program at night. It's a criminal offense. So she says, don't send me the Bible. We didn't. We just can't. Those who contact LBR expressing an interest are sent free Bibles where possible. Eventually, when and where possible, we arrange for someone in the region who speaks the language to go and visit this person, if it's possible, and nurture this person as best they can. We know, even though we don't get a lot of responses, we know there are millions and thousands of people who listen to Christian programs all over, because some have some difficulties with security issues, illiteracy, lack of communication, infrastructure, no postal service in your community, poverty. They don't even have money to buy a stamp. But we maximize our potential for an audience because we do our broadcast during high volume morning and evening hours, and by producing programs in the local languages wherever it is possible. So we kind of pass over those barriers as best we can by doing this. Question, how do you support this? We do like 80 languages or so in shortwave alone, and we have a lot of production in different languages for podcast. And one person said to me, I asked a question one time, how many people do you think work for AWR? Well, excluding the producers who are localized in different regions of the world, and are controlled, I should say, and employed by and controlled by and supervised by the local church entity in that area because of the language issue, how many people do you think work in our system? Including headquarters in Maryland, we have less than 30 people on our payroll worldwide. We have offices in Maryland. 1/3 of our staff works in Silver Spring. We have an office in England. We have the frequency management office in Darmstadt, where Claudius, some of you know Claudius, Dadio, and Pino. That's where they work. We used to have an office in Africa. We consolidated that with one in Europe. We still have an office in Indonesia for Asia. And we have, of course, the engineers and management system on Guam, where we have the main station. With all those places included, we have under 30 people working in our entire system worldwide in all these languages. So every moment for us counts. Every single second on the clock counts. Something is happening with absolute precision throughout the world in Adventist World Radio every single instant of the day. And it has to work like a well-oiled machine, otherwise it will break down over time. But it's working very well with these people. We have very, very lean staff. Oh, supported. We are supported by a grant from the church that covers our overhead, basically. We must find donations, like many of you have to do, on a regular basis to support the rest of the program. So we get like 20+% of our budget from the church. There are ways we are constantly seeking for donation. We have a good donor base. By the way, just before I forget, I have some little goodies. I'll give it to you. I'll have it put together tonight sometime before I leave. But what I have in here, I wanted to show you. And inside the bag, I'll give you a book that was written by Andrea Steele and Alan Steele. I don't know if any of you know these people. They are now retired here in the States. They were pioneers in Sines, Portugal. And they wrote this little book. Interesting. It says Loud Let It Ring. And it's basically an interestingly put together book by Andrea and Alan Steele about their journey with AWR. You'll probably find Adrian Peterson's name in here as well. I thought you may find it interesting to get a little history. Also, I have a little bit of... we also put out, so you know, I brought a sample of the quarterly newsletter. This one here, we call it Transmissions. And we publish stories, fresh reports from the field. This is a quarterly magazine. And I have a little brochure inside here that tells you a little bit about AWR. And I have a on a very expensive pen that works most of the time. So this is a little friendly reminder of AWR. And finally, a book I thought was interesting. Our church has given out over 100 million of these books. It's a book of history of the Christian church, and I think you may find it interesting to read, and that each one can get a bag to take back home. For those of you, how many of you have been on Guam? Some said they have been. That's where our main station is. TWR has a good station, a great station close to us on Guam. Guam has been in the area for 25 years. Since 1987 now, 26 years. We started in 1971 in Portugal. So we recently celebrated our 40th anniversary as a radio system per se. But out of Guam, we started in 87. So that's 6 years. We upgraded one of our 4 antennas to a higher band. We did that last year. And we're adding one more antenna to make it 6 antennas on Guam. This is our site on Guam. Those of you who have been there, you may recall a little bit of it. That's our main station. That's the Pacific Ocean over there. As you can see, these towers sustain the antennas, right? These are those of you in shortwave broadcasting, you know these are huge antennas. These antennas are so big you can put 2 football fields together, and when you slide it on its side, that's the space you have between those 2 towers. Big, very sophisticated. CTI antenna. The people out in California are doing this for us. TCI, I'm sorry, not CTI. As I speak, CTB, that's the company I was thinking about, out of South Africa, is on the island putting up the tower and the antenna as I speak. On September 2 and 3 this year. Those of you who are willing and able to come to Guam, come enjoy the nice weather over there. We will be inaugurating this new antenna on site. We have 3 resident engineers on that site, 1 office manager, and 1 grounds person. 5 full-time employees run that station. Out of this station, we broadcast every day over 36 languages constantly out of the site. Out of the 80 plus, we broadcast 36 or more out of Guam. Covers the entire Pacific Rim. Like a fan. It goes up from Korea, all the Koreas right down to Siberia, part of Siberia, Mongolia, China, of course, Japan included, Taiwan. And it comes right down, Hong Kong comes right down to Southeast Asia. Penetrates right there into India, into Nepal, into Tibet, deep into Central Asia. When you come to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, the signal is weak, but then we hit that region from Europe. So they get a double whammy from both sides. This is the new antenna going up the tower going up as I speak. And it's a massive job. This project is costing us over $3 million. But we thought it was necessary to optimize our broadcast, especially to China and Korea. So China and North Korea are very, very important to us and to many of you. And this is an investment we have made to optimize our signal in those countries. This is our newly appointed trainer. We have trainers that train people around the world. We have them localized in different parts of the world. This one who just recently appointed in Thailand is a native Thai, former Buddhist, so he knows the culture very well. Surachet Insom. He is at our studio, a little studio we have there outside of Bangkok, a little town called Muak Lek, on the campus of one of our universities in the region. He is a very fine guy. He produces programs in Thai, but he also oversees the production in the Hmong language, the Lao language, and now the Isan languages for Laos and Cambodia and other places there in the nearby vicinity. This is with him in the studio. Last time I was there a few months ago, visiting the studio. We support these studios basically fully. We only ask them to provide a space, and we come in and do all the equipment, the training, and even paying for some of the producers. This is a group of trainees we did in Abidjan last fall. At our headquarters in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. These people produce for us in the French. Well, this is from all over West Africa, but out of Abidjan we do Dioula, colloquial Arabic. We do French, of course. Let's go next one. This is our producer in the Ukraine, Kiev. This is the little studio, audio studio, where he produces programs in his local vernacular. Anatoly, very nice fellow.
Dr. Dal Chow there, president of Adventist World Radio, speaking to shortwave broadcasters at the 2013 annual meeting of the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters. And we'll have yet more from Dr. Chow on future editions of Wavescan.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
For the first time in the history of electrical communication, wireless was used for the transmission of war news from the fighting areas to newspaper offices in Europe and the United States. The year was 1904, and this is what happened. Back towards the end of the year 1903, it so happened that the wireless experimenter Lee de Forest was in Ireland, and he was presenting test demonstrations of his wireless equipment to interested observers at a location near the city of Dublin. War was in the offing over in the Far East. Belligerent countries were making preparation, and newspapers were preparing to give good coverage. The London Times contracted with Captain Lionel James to go to the Far East as a news reporter, and Captain James contracted with Lee de Forest to set up 2 wireless stations, one on land and another aboard ship. 2 of Lee de Forest's employees in his New York office were given 24 hours to get ready to travel to the Far East. A total of 4 tons of wireless was quickly assembled, and additional equipment was brought into New York by a wireless operator from England. On January 17, 1904, Mr. H.J. Brown, now in his 30s, and 21-year-old H.E. Ahern, together with all of their assembled wireless equipment, left New York by train for Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. At this western Canadian seaport, they boarded the ship Empress of Japan, owned and operated by the Canadian Pacific Railway Company and bound for the Western Pacific. The wireless party arrived in Yokohama, Japan on February 9th, and they immediately boarded another seagoing vessel, the Empress of China, operated by Canadian Pacific steamships and bound for Shanghai on the edge of China. Here they took over a Chinese coastal vessel, the Haimen, and loaded all of their equipment aboard for the journey north to the disputed waters. On board the good ship Haimen, and while it was traveling northwards, one set of wireless equipment was installed for usage, together with 2 wireless masts, one American Oregon pine and the other Chinese bamboo. However, both masts were felled in the rough seas, and so the Oregon pine mast at 75 feet was tied to one of the ship's masts. In due course, the Haimen arrived at an isolated British colony known in those days as Wei Hai Wei, which was located on the island of Liao Kang Tun. Here it was that the 21-year-old radio operator, H.E. Ahern, was offloaded together with the other set of wireless equipment which he installed on a cliff overlooking the ocean. He erected the 180-foot bamboo wireless mast on top of the 350-foot high cliff. It took Ahern 3 weeks to get the station ready for service with electric power from their own kerosene engine. The location was just 1.5 miles from a nearby cable station, operated by the Eastern Extension Telegraph and Cable Company. In the meantime, the ship Haimen left the area and steamed towards the area of conflict between Russia and Japan. On March 15, 1904, war correspondent Lionel James sent his first dispatch from the Haimen, and this was tapped out in standard Morse code by the operator H.J. Brown. This message was picked up by Ahern in his little hut at the land-based wireless station and transcribed into regular English. A Chinese messenger took the written message to the nearby cable station, and in less than a quarter of an hour this war report was again tapped out in Morse code, and this time it was sent out over the long wire and cable systems to distant England and America for publication in the London Times and the New York Times. This then was the first wireless message from a news correspondent in a war zone. The content of this historic first wireless message from a war correspondent told of the Japanese landing at Chinampo on the Korean peninsula when 25,000 troops and 10,000 horses went ashore. 3 weeks later, the Russian Navy vessel Bayan arrested the movement of the Haimen wireless ship, and they sent a raiding party aboard the small Chinese steamer. One of the personnel on board the Haimen was a Japanese censor who vetted every word sent out in Morse code from this wireless-equipped news vessel. In order to protect his life, Lionel James had him quickly disguised as a Malay pilot at the helm of this ship. However, both the Russians and the Japanese ordered the Haimen out of the war zone, and so the ship steamed back to Wei Highway, where they picked up wireless operator Ahern and his equipment, and then they moved off to Nagasaki in Japan, where the ship was discharged from service. During his 6 weeks of war reporting service, Lionel James sent out a total of 10,000 words in his daily wireless reports from the Haimen. As a postlude, the ship Haimen went back to service in Chinese waters. Lionel James stayed in the Far East and continued in service as a land-based war reporter. And the two wireless operators, H.E. Ahern and H.J. Brown, returned to the United States, where they were hailed as heroes back from the dangers in the environs of the war zone. Listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Now we're going to Henry Omahay in the Philippines with his monthly DX report.
Hello everyone, to our dear shortwave listeners. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the August 11th edition of the Philippine DX News. This is report number 78. I'm Henry Omahay in Antigua, Central Philippines. Glad to be back and thank you for listening. First, let me thank our DXR friends for the reception reports and for keeping in touch. Mr. Hiroshi Katayama in Hiroshima, Japan, Mr. Ian Baxter in Australia, and Mr. Andra Gonawan in Indonesia. Thank you very much. Radio Pilipinas Overseas, the voice of the Philippines, broadcast schedule in English from Manila, 0200 to 0330 UTC, 15285 kHz, 11880 and 17820 kHz. Reception lags for July 2013. July 1, Radio Thailand on 9390 in English from Odantani at 12:45 UTC as a rating 333. July 1, KBS World Radio on 9640 in English from Kimche at 1417 as a rating 444. July 1, All India Radio on 9690 in English from Bangalore at 1420 as a rating 555. July 5, BBC World Service on 17695 in English at midnight 10 as a rating 444. July 5, Radio Thailand on 15275 in English morning broadcast from Odantani at midnight 31 as a rating 555. July 5, Sarawak FM in shortwave on 9835 in Malay from Sarawak, Malaysia at 0300 UTC as a rating 433. July 5, Radio Japan on 17585 in Japanese from Yamata at 0810 as a rating 555. July 5, HCJB Australia on 15490 from Kununurra in English at 0815 as a rating 333. July 8, Adventist World Radio on 17550 in Filipino from Guam at 1040 as a rating 555. July 14, KNLS Alaska on 9920 in English from Angkor Pohen at 1500 as a rating 444. July 14, Radio Veritas Asia on 15320 in English from Palawig at 1535 UTC as a rating 343. July 17, Radio Pilipinas on 11880 from Tinang in English at 0228 SIU rating 333. July 20, Radio Thailand HFK9 World Service on 9950 in English, Pramodantani at 1400 SI rating 555. July 24, Radio Romania International on 13800 in English, Pram Bucharesti at 2052 SI rating 433. And July 25, Transworld Radio T8WH Palau on 9930 in English at 0820 SI rating 444. We have a special QSL card just for you featuring the mountain range of Tobias Fournier Antique. For your reception report, please send one IRC International Reply Coupon or $2 US. Return postage will be greatly appreciated. And friends, if you want to get the transcript of today's Pilipinas DX news and see our QSL card series, please visit http://pilipinasdx.wordpress.com. That's http://pilipinasdx.wordpress.com. Follow us also on Facebook, www.facebook.com/pilipinasdx. Or you may want to send us your comments, suggestions, reception logs, and informations to pilipinasdx@yahoo.com. That's PILIPINASDX for pilipinasdx@yahoo.com. This has been Henry Umaday for Wavescan in Antique, Central Philippines, saying mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
Folk music from Russia ends today's Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio. Thank you very much for listening. This program was written and researched by Dr. Adrian Peterson in Indianapolis, Indiana. Next week on Wavescan, the 75th anniversary of All India Radio on shortwave. We'll have more from the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters annual meeting in Alabama, and our DX report from Bangladesh. Reminder that we have 2 QSL cards available for reports on this program, one from AWR, another from WRMI. You can send your reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. If you have any general comments, questions, or suggestions for the program, you can send them to us by email at wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Miami. Till next week, good listening, everyone.